Hey folks, it's William with All Solar Texas here with a special edition for you. If you're a Texas homeowner looking to go solar, make sure you watch this video. We'll cover all the different components and some of the things that you need to factor in before making a decision. Stay tuned. Alright folks, but before we dive in, please make sure to hit that subscribe button and don't forget to tap on that notification bell. That helps us out a little bit with YouTube and keeps you up to date with all the latest energy news that we produce here on the channel. Lastly, reach out to us, give us a call. We love hearing from customers, and whether or not you're an existing solar customer or you are a potential solar customer looking to get the best deal, we're here for you and we respond quickly. All right, folks, today we have a very special guest for you. Sam, why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself and some of our viewers here?
Yeah, well, I'm Sam. I'm with TAC. I'm the Vice President of Business Development. TAC is a company that is a locally owned, family-owned company here in Texas. We specialize in installing solar on residential and commercial buildings. And we work with companies much like yours, providing them quality installs while they are able to positively work with a customer.
Yeah, and you're one of our install partners in the Houston area, but you also service Dallas-Fort Worth, is that correct?
Yeah, we service Dallas-Fort Worth. Our owner honestly jokes around and he says, if the money's right, we'll install solar on Mars.
Okay. Yeah, well, I don't see us getting to Mars anytime soon, and right now I don't think the money's quite right, at least until Elon Musk figures out a way to get it done.
So Elon, if you're watching, we can install it for you if the money's right.
Yeah, all right, Elon, you heard it. We'll make sure that you get his contact information. We look forward to partnering with Tesla on building the first solar system in Mars. One of the top questions that we get is, the solar industry has a bad rap. And so a lot of the customers are giving me a call and saying, what's the deal with solar? Why do I hear so many bad things about it? Is it really something that makes sense? And how are you different? So could you elaborate a little bit more on what's happening in the solar industry and why it has a bad rap?
Sure. So there's two different reasons. One reason is that there's sales groups that just honestly aren't honest with the customer. They give them great promises and they overpromise and underdeliver. The other issue is you may have a good sales group, but the install group behind them just cuts a lot of corners, and so then the system isn't performing. And then sometimes you have a company that does both badly. And that's when you really see a lot of issues in the solar industry. So that's why as TAC, we look at partnering with people that have integrity, people that we know, hey, they're going to take care of the customer later on. We've worked with companies that as we kept working with them, there were a lot of issues. And so we still service them, even though we don't hold the warranties to those customers. As TAC, we still try to help them out as much as we can. Those are, some of the different ways that solar has gotten a bad rap.
Yeah, on the sales side, what I'm seeing is customers calling me and saying, hey, I didn't know I signed a contract. The salesperson said that, I just need to sign this document in order to see if they could get pre-approved for a loan, and they end up finding out that it was a contract. And some customers are able to cancel that contract because they're within that 3-day period, and then others call me back and say, hey, I wish we could have done business, but I'm locked into this contract. I also get calls of solar salespeople that have just straight out lied to people. They've said, solar is free, the government will give you X amount of dollars back, and they don't really understand the federal tax credit, and so they're making these promises that they can't guarantee, as well as using all these gimmicks to try to get them in, right? It's like, if you sign today, then you'll get X amount money back, or we'll come in and we'll give you a gift card or energy efficiency or whatever, thinking that they're not paying for it, but they are. And so on the sales side, it's just, the problems that I'm seeing is bad salespeople that are very aggressive, they're pushy, they just want to get the sale, and so they'll say whatever they need to do to get that signature on the line. Then on the install side, it's quality issues, it's warranty issues, it's customer service issues, and that's why All Solar Texas, we take the stance that we do, and we operate with integrity, and why we vet our install partners like TAC, and felt very comfortable after we got together and kind of worked through all that and had very similar values in how we engage with customers.
Sure. I always appreciate it when a sales company vets us because we're vetting them. And so if we're vetting each other, that means that we both care about the customer. And so I'm really glad to hear that you vet who you are working with and you chose us. And to talk about some of the things that you were just mentioning, one of the things you mentioned was, convincing the customer to sign. while it's a contract, we'll tell them it's not a contract. Anytime you sign a document, that's somehow going to be a contract. So whether they say it's a contract or not, there's fine print stating this is a contract. So that's always something you want to look out for. There are ways that you can do soft credit checks within solar. Most of the financing companies do a soft credit check. It doesn't hit their credit score, any of the customers' credit scores. And those don't require signatures. You're able to just do that without a signature. So if they're asking you for something beyond a signature, then they probably are trying to get you to sign a contract. So that's just something to be aware of.
Yeah, so the bottom line there for our customers is read what you're signing. Don't sign anything before you understand it. Make sure you ask questions before you sign anything, and make sure that you have a sound understanding of what it is you're getting yourself into before you sign.
Right.
All right, so now we're going to talk a little bit about the supply chain issues. Obviously, COVID is still impacting supply chain. So what does that look like on the solar side of the house?
Yeah, so the solar industry through COVID actually boomed because there were so many people that were at home that were getting higher and higher electric bills, that we saw an influx of people going solar in 2020 and 2021. So as the factories were having to slow down because they didn't have workers because of the COVID mandates in the individual countries, the demand was spiking. And so not only do we have that, but then we also have tariffs that are coming into place. If people heard about it, Trump actually signed some solar tariffs into place when he was in office. And there have been some companies since as recent as this year that have said, hey, we don't think that some companies are following the tariffs correctly. So there's some things being relooked at, everything on that. And you actually are seeing some suppliers saying, okay, we're going to pull out of the U.S. market until this is settled because we don't know what's going to happen with our individual panels. So
what is that doing to like customer lead times, or is it even affecting pricing at all, or is it affecting material supply, and what does that look like?
So there has been a tighter panel shortage. So panels aren't as readily available. We're still able to keep on track with our installs, but SEIA, the Solar Energy Industry Association, which is the the lobbying arm for solar, they actually put out some documentation stating that they're expecting solar over the next course of at least through August to rise up to 20% in costs.
Especially in the Texas area, right, where we're seeing a lot more people moving into the state. There's a lot more enthusiasm about, protecting their power and kind of owning their power instead of being connected to the, unreliable utility grid. All right, one of the things that we need to kind of explain is why does solar cost so much, right? And it's because we have these, these different utility spaces that we're working in, which we'll talk to a little bit more. But if I'm a customer looking to go solar, does it make sense for me to wait 2 years or 5 years, or should I really be looking at going solar now? And if so, why?
Well, the longer you wait, the less money you're going to end up saving, because if you start now, working with the right companies, while you may, in some cases, pay more at the beginning, by the end of it, you're paying less than what your utility bill was. But if you wait, we don't know what's going on with the market. So we had a drop in price, and it was a continual drop, and now we're having a spike in price because of the supply chain issues. So I would say the sooner you sign up, the better, because that's locking in your price before it goes too high. Because if they end up saying, yes, there are issues with the tariff, that could actually increase the price of solar even more. Over the past year, not only has the solar module gone up, but wire has gone up, everything like that. Labor has gone up. Any good solar company is constantly giving, not only are they taking care of their laborers, but they're giving them raises, because that's how you treat people correctly.
Right, and you're trying to keep those people, the good ones, on board, because you want your customers to have the best labor, the people that get it done right the first time, and that comes with the cost, right? If you want to just save as much money as possible and go with the lowest bidder for solar, you don't know what you're getting. You don't know what the quality of panels are, what type of labor is going to be involved in that, right? Maybe it's the bottom of the barrel guys, and that's why you're paying less, right?
Yeah.
So there is a cost to solar, but as my grandfather always used to say, you get what you pay for, right? And there's no such thing as a free lunch.
Yeah. TAC's floor, we actually are at the hey, we're a better, best, and premium kind of company. So we're only going to use better panels, the best panels, or the customers can choose a premium. But with our employees, we try to treat them as the best. So we actually try to do things like that. So we're paying our guys whether there's rain or shine. And so those are just, for a solid company, there's some costs that are just hard costs that keep solar at a little bit higher of a cost, but also at a better maintained cost.
And one of the other reasons to go solar now is the federal tax credit that's available, right? So
Sure.
that's a 26% federal subsidy of your overall solar program or your overall solar system. So if you were to wait, we know that at least now the 26% federal tax credit is scheduled to sunset at the end of this year, 2022, and then it's going to go down to 22%. In reality, we don't know what the government's ever going to do, right? But what I always tell customers is if you're buying now, you know what you're paying, you're locking it in, whether or not the market goes up or goes down, whether or not interest rates go up or go down, right? You know what you're going to be paying for your electricity for the next 30 years, 25 years if you go solar now.
Absolutely. Yeah, that 26% tax credit is a tricky thing. So in the solar industry, if people are telling you, hey, you're guaranteed to get this, that is not something that is ever true. We are not tax advisors. We don't know your tax situation. And even if you gave us your tax forms, we have not been trained. I might know like one tax person that also does solar.
Right.
So the majority of the time, that's not going to be the case. But how it does work is that, like you said, it's a 26% tax credit. And so if you have the eligible tax liability, you can take that down. Right. But if you don't, there's no guarantee. So yeah, that definitely is.
And that's really important for customers to know because that's what we see in predatory sales reps going in and guaranteeing a certain amount of money back from the federal government. They're giving their customers tax advice when they're certainly not qualified tax professionals and they're not qualified to even be in the solar business, let alone speak to taxes. Right. And so typically what I tell my customers is, yes, there is a 26% federal tax credit that is available for the overall cost of your solar system. But since I don't know your tax liability, I don't know your tax situation, I advise you to talk to your CPA, talk to the person that prepares your taxes. When we talk to CPAs, they know that, yeah, it's for most people, by and large, it's a great deal, right? But I've worked with pastors. Pastors of churches have different kind of tax, setups and structures. Right. I work with low-income, high-income individuals. Everybody has a different tax profile, and so at All Solar Texas and certainly with TAC, we're not tax professionals, and so we do not give tax advice, but we do point out what's available.
Yeah, I know enough to know I don't know anything about taxes, and so I can tell you everything that I know about the ITC, the solar tax credit, but I can't tell you how that's going to impact you. So, I mean, I don't know how many kids you have. I mean, farmers also have deductions they get to take.
That's right.
Depreciation on their equipment and things like that can drastically affect their taxes.
Well, and residential versus commercial too, right? Because if you have a commercial business versus residential, there's different tax rates for that, and there's also different tax incentives for going solar, whether or not you're commercial. So I know that we partner with you also on some commercial jobs as well. So residential and commercial, some of these basic principles do apply, but at the end of the day, it's talk to your tax professional whether or not you own a business or you're just a homeowner.
Right.
So that leads us kind of into financing. So what are some of the benefits of solar financing that we're seeing right now with the market and with the increase in interest rates? Can our customers expect those interest rates to go up as well?
Yeah, sure. So there's really three ideas in the market right now within solar sales. You have, hey, sell a customer a really low interest rate. So we have as low as a 1.49, but the cost of that is going to be higher for that system than if you go with a higher interest rate. Those systems, typically a lower cost, and then you have people that are in the middle that understand, hey, not all the time are either one of these going to be good for the customer, so let's meet in the middle. So with the low interest rate, the customer is almost always going to have a lower payment than what they're currently paying with their utility. And so you just have to kind of gauge their customer. I was listening to a podcast from that one of our lenders was actually on yesterday, and they pointed out that most loans universally are taken care of within 5 to 7 years. So that's home loans, that's
Car loans.
solar loans, car loans, everything within 5 to 7 years. And so does it make sense to go with I want to give you a really low interest rate?
But 25-year
25.
term. Right.
Yeah. So even if you paid it off early, you might be paying more than if you went somewhere in the middle to where you have a lower rate, but on top of the lower rate, hey, it's going to be paid off probably within 5 to 7 years. And so you still have low payments, but you're not paying the extra for the lower management fees and things like that.
Yeah, here's what I really like about solar is it's a very unique loan, right? If I want to go and purchase a car, I'm not going to get a 25-year loan option on a term with a very low interest rate, right? I'm not going to be expected to pay that loan back in 2, 3, 5 years, maybe 7 years, and that interest rate is going to be much higher. Or if I want to do a home improvement project, like I want to replace my roof or put in a pergola or something like that, I'm going into my own pocket in most cases, or I'm taking out a home equity line of credit or having to go to my local, bank and take out a personal loan. With solar, there is $0 down. And with solar, we have record low interest rates, and we're able to finance over a 5, 10, 15, 20, 25-year term, which is very unique for most home improvement projects. And so one of the things that we like to inform our customers about is, you may not take 25 years to pay it off, but at least it gives you some breathing room in your budget, because with solar financing, you know what you're paying for your power now. It's locked in. It's not like with the utility where you'll have a high bill, a low bill, and a sky high bill, and a medium bill, and it goes up and down, and it's very difficult to budget. This way locks you in. It's like, this is what I know I'm going to be paying for 20, 25 years. If I pay it off early, there's no prepayment penalties, right? It gives me more room to budget, because now I know what I'm going to be paying for my power. And then once it's paid off, it's mine. I own it, and it's going to increase the value of my home even.
Yeah, that's actually an objection that we hear common in the solar industry is, well, why do I want to buy my panels? I don't want a loan. So
you're talking about leases or power purchase agreements, or something?
No, I'm talking about in general. Why do I want to? Yeah, why do I want to? Why do I want to get a loan for my solar?
Right.
And so really, you touched on it. If you're a homeowner, you're probably paying a mortgage payment.
Right.
Why are you paying that mortgage payment over renting a house? Well, when you go solar, you're doing the same thing. Hey, instead of renting my electricity, I'm not going to see anything from giving it to my utility. I'm going to own it. And so then it's my electricity. It is mine, not theirs.
Yeah, you own it. It's now an investment, and it's the same thing. So every dollar you put towards your solar system, let's say you do finance over a 25-year period, but then you want to add an extra $100 towards the principal every month, you could do it. It's your option.
Absolutely.
Just like paying down a mortgage or just like paying down a car loan. And that's the difference, is that when you go solar and it's own solar, you own your power. You're not renting it anymore and putting your hard-earned dollars back into the pockets of the bloated utility companies any more than if you were to rent a home. You're just kind of throwing money away versus buying your home, where you're investing in something that you can recoup some value out of at some point.
Sure. And so also talking about the utility companies, they typically have an increase in price.
Okay, so you bring up a good point about utilities. So if I'm a customer looking to go solar, we're in Texas. We have a very diverse, utility system where we have a deregulated space, a regulated space. We have, different city municipalities, co-ops. Right. So if I'm a customer, what do I need to know about my local utility before going solar?
Yeah. So one of the questions as you're going solar, you want to look at, hey, how much is that utility going to pay me back for my electricity that I put onto the grid?
And that's called a buyback.
Yeah. That's called net metering.
Net metering. Okay. All right. Let's talk through what are some of those nuances, as well as we have customers that don't know the difference between net metering, buybacks, and their utilities.
Yeah. So net metering is how the utility is deciding how they're going to switch money back and forth between you. Because most solar systems, there'll come a time where you're overproducing during the day. And so their net metering is saying, hey, we're going to give you this for what you give us, and you're going to give us this for what you take from us. So you have some utilities that do what's called a voided cost. So you could be at 13 cents a kilowatt hour. and they're buying back at 3 cents because that's their avoided cost on all of that.
Yeah, that's their wholesale value, right? And so in that instance, if you're paying 13 cents per kilowatt hour to get power from them, and you're only selling it back, and they're giving you 3 cents, you're losing on that deal, right?
Right. You're losing pretty heavily. So either if you're in an area like that, if a sales group is saying we're going to get you 100% offset, that's actually not good for you because of the buyback situation. So in those situations, if the price is right, you can oversize the system and possibly overcome that. But typically you either want battery or you want to go closer to 60 to 80% offset so that you're not losing money on the deal.
Right. The whole goal is to own your power, and you don't want to give it back to the utility for free or for a discount, right? And so if we're overbuilding our system because we have the roof space or we have the ability to put more panels, then that may be an option. Or if we don't have a lot of roof space, maybe it's a smaller home, we could put in batteries, and now we're pulling from the battery and not having to send so much back to them because now we're storing that extra production.
Right. Because if you think about it, if they're giving you 3 cents, they're taking your energy and selling to other people at 13.
Right.
So they're making 10 cents on your 3.
Right. And it could be your neighbor if they don't have solar, right?
Correct. So, yes, help your neighbor out, but that is not the way I want to help my neighbor out. I'd rather, if I have batteries and solar, the power goes out, come over to my house and charge your phone.
So if I'm a customer, the key takeaway here is get to know your local utility provider. Understand, I know that I've walked several of my customers through it where they're in a co-op. So we download all of the manuals and the rates and the tariffs. And that's one of the unique things that we provide to our customers is we help them decipher that. We'll help them call the utility and get questions answered so that customer knows what they're actually paying for or what they may be losing out on just because they're in a co-op or maybe they're in a deregulated space or regulated space. The important thing is know what your utility provides in terms of solar before just jumping in, because it could be something that is more of an advantage or less of an advantage depending upon the configuration of your system.
Absolutely. And on TAC's end, once a system is sold and you hand it over to us, we hold the customer's hand through the process of, okay, this is the information that the utility is needing right now. So this is what they're needing. Let's work through this together so that it's not just, okay, you're going solar, here's everything. It's, hey, we need this.
That leads us into a really great next topic is what does that look like? So if I'm a customer and I like my system and I sign on the dotted line and everything works, what's next? Can you break down what the kind of end-to-end process is for our customers so that they know what to expect?
Yeah, absolutely. So once you sign on the dotted lines, every customer, because of the Truth in Lending Act and things like that, they have a 3-day right of rescission. And so as TAC, we've taken the stance that we're not going to start work until after the 3-day right of rescission because we want to give the customer time to think about it.
And that's industry speak for you have a 3-day window to terminate your contract. Basically.
Yeah, with no reprecations.
With no repercussions. Yeah. So the customer signs, we give them that 3-day window, and then walk us through the process.
And then we send someone out. We check their typically attic space, wherever we're gonna. So if we're placing solar on the house, we check the attic if we can. We measure between the rafters. We measure some different spans between some stuff so that we can get some good engineering on that. We figure out on the inside, hey, what's the tilt? What's the
angle
that the roof is?
We take measurements, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And then TAC uses a drone technology.
Yeah,
correct?
we use a drone technology. We actually use a company called Scanifly that we're able to upload our photos that we take with the drone. And it uses pictography technology that ends up making a 3D model of the home so that we have within, I believe it's about an inch accuracy of the size of all the roofs and everything like that, and we send that to our engineers.
Okay, and so you take all of that information and it basically gets fed into the design process. So what does that look like?
Right, so our engineers take that information and they look at what the energy expert, the solar salesman, whatever you want to call them, someone like Will, presented to the customer, and they make a design as close as possible with that while taking into account, hey, we have real world measurements of trees, of different shadings in the area, and so what is going to help the customer the best. And then we get that engineering done, we show it to the customer. So the customer can see, hey, this is what we're...
And if the customer has any questions, then that's the perfect time to ask that.
We're giving them another time to ask questions of, okay, I see that this is exactly the same, so this is going to be most optimal, yes, or hey, these panels were moved. Why was this moved? Okay, well, this is why. Because there may be a tree that wasn't accounted for correctly in the original issues. And so in that case, the customer has the option to, hey, yes, I'm fine with panels being moved, or hey, I'd like to remove that tree or trim it back. So they're able to see things kind of like that at the engineering stage. But in the background, what's also going on is that we have people in our back office that are working with, if the customer's in an HOA or, starting to work with the utility to get the paperwork done so that they can get their system turned on as soon as possible.
Right, because there's that interconnection application, and so what I like about working with TAC and thinking about things from the customer side is it's pretty turnkey. So once you decide to sign a contract, we're doing everything behind the scenes, and then we'll only reach out to the customer to approve a design or to get their feedback on a certain configuration. But outside of that, the heavy lifting is being done internally, and so it's the interconnection application, it's dealing with the HOA, right? So there may be a need to pull in a customer just to kind of maybe point us in the right direction of who's the best person to work through an HOA request, but everything else is managed in-house, correct?
Correct, yeah. Our engineering is in-house, our install teams are in-house, so everything that TAC does is pretty much in-house.
And then once we finish the design, the customer's happy, then we go to equipment and...
Yeah, so we have people on staff that look at, hey, this is the engineering, so we know we need to order this much of all the equipment, because every system is a custom system.
Right.
So we have to custom buy for each system. No two systems have I ever seen that, hey, we spent the exact same on these two systems. They could be the same size system, but because the configuration of the panels was different, different things like that, that involves different costs. So that's something that we look at and have someone ordering specifically for each one. Then we typically, we hand that over to our vendors, and we get our vendors typically to actually ship it directly to the customer's house, so that when we show up, typically the next morning of when it's delivered.
On install date.
On install date. And sometimes they deliver on install date, but that we are there and we are installing.
And then the crew goes in. I'm sure that they do a safety briefing, because safety is always important. They meet with the customer, let the customer know ahead of time, when they're going to be getting there, and we work with the customer to make sure that it's a time that works for them and their family.
Yeah.
And then they do the actual install. And during that process, what's normally entailed within the process? A lot of the questions I get from customers is, do I need to be home? What if I have dogs? What are some of those things that a customer needs to factor in?
Sure. So usually our installs take we're typically done within 3 days. Most installs are done within a day or two. So I would say 80% are done within 3 days, and probably 75% are done with 2. And so because of that, we're not there for very long, but we need the homeowner to be there at certain points in time, because we do need to connect to typically get attic access, because we try not to have pipe go all over their roof and things like that. I know that's been a complaint for some customers as they're considering going solar. And then we also, wherever the main panel is for the house, if that's inside the garage, we're going to need to find a way to get into the garage. And then if there's dogs that are in the backyard,
we need to make sure that dogs are put up.
Yeah. Well, and it also depends on, is there a way we can put a ladder up on the front side of the house? Because if we can, then we don't have to worry about that. But we're needing to look at where the panels are going to be placed, and where there may be dogs and backyard issues. If we're putting them all on one side of the house, and that side of the house we can get front access, it's not going to be an issue.
And then if I'm a customer, I get monitoring as part of the process. And so after the install, if I'm kind of monitoring my equipment, what happens during that period of the warranty period, where it's like there's an issue that comes up? A lot of customers say, do I have to monitor it? Does the installer monitor it? What does that look like if something happens? What do I do? Do I call somebody, or?
Sure. So with TAC, we have access to the monitoring, but we've done so many systems that it's hard for us to monitor it all the time. So if the customer does end up seeing that there's some kind of issue or something, and we actually have an email specifically set aside for that. And so when they email that, it actually goes to a group of us. We all see, hey, there's an issue going on. We try to respond to the customer within 24 hours of that and at least let them know we've seen their issue. And then if it's an emergency, we get someone out there as soon as possible. If it's something like, hey, there is a single panel out, we're going to still address that quickly, but that's not, hey, for some reason, these breakers aren't working anymore. So there is a level of severity that we also take into account, and then we get schedule time to go out to the customer.
So that's something to factor in as you're a customer. In deciding who to go solar with, it's really important that you understand what's the warranty backing that, what's their process if there's an issue. I might get a very cheap system, but then I can't reach anybody if there's an issue, versus maybe going with a slightly more expensive system that's covered by a better, more comprehensive warranty as well.
Yeah, so as TAC, we actually lean on the manufacturers as well. So we use products that have longer warranties.
Like 25-year warranties for
25.
phase.
Yeah, I think pretty much everything we use has a 25-year warranty.
With the exception of maybe the batteries, right?
The batteries typically are between 10 and 15 years. And that's industry standard. But besides the batteries, everything else we're using.
Well, let's talk about that a little bit. So talk about the configuration of a solar system. So explain a little bit about what we have here, and what are some of the components that go into a solar system?
So a solar system, obviously you need a solar panel. So solar panels are really dumb. Like, just to be honest, they're going to absorb electricity and they're going to spit out electricity. What this is right here is like if you attach a Roku, an Apple TV, something like that to the panel. Now it's a smart panel. Now it can figure out what it needs to do. And so we use microinverters. That's one of the two main technologies being used today in solar. The three overall are string systems, optimized systems, and microinverted systems.
But if I'm a customer, I want to go with the microinverter. And so can you tell me why I would choose a microinverter? Yeah,
so we choose microinverter because we've seen that there are less service calls that we need to make with them. We choose specifically the Enphase microinverter because we feel that it is a quality product that will hold up over time. We've had less issues with them than with other microinverters we've tried. TAC, our leadership has been doing solar since 2008, and so we've seen the different technologies and the different things, and we've tried different things. And so, the microinverter that we use is time-tested, one that we feel safe to use.
And one of the things that we just got in was the IQ7-8 microinverter. So Enphase just came out with an IQ7-8 microinverter. Can you talk through a little bit what's the difference between the IQ7 and the IQ8, which we also have in stock?
Yeah, so the IQ8, really the biggest difference is the microprocessor within it. They're almost exactly the same, but the IQ8 is even smarter, which means that we can pair it up with a smart controller and give the customer daytime backup. Before, what would happen is that if the power went out, your solar was down. And that's to actually...
That's a safety.
That's a safety issue. Yeah, the utility people that are working on the lines, if there is power being backfed onto it, they can get shocked, they can get electrocuted, and it could potentially kill them if there wasn't that stop.
All right, and I come from the utility industry, so before I got into solar and started this company, I worked for the utility, and I was a construction manager, and we were always worried about backfeed coming from generators or solar systems, and killing linemen that are out there repairing those lines. And so this system is designed to shut down as a safety mechanism, but the key difference that you just mentioned between the IQ7s and the IQ8s is you are then still able to power your home as a backup source.
Yeah, so you can get the smart switch. There's an auto transfer switch. So, hey, we're seeing that we're not receiving electricity from the grid. It turns off to where it won't send anything out, but uses the microinverters and says, hey, right now we need this much electricity. How much can you produce? And it figures based off of the load configuration and different things like that of how much electricity each panel needs to give so that there's not overproduction going on. Because if there's overproduction, it's going to cause breakers to pop and things like that. So the microprocessors that are new in it actually help them figure out and communicate, hey, I'm going to turn this dial and this dial so that we get the right amount of electricity.
Right. And then talking about panels, there's a significant difference in panel types as well. So there's different wattages. So can you talk through what are some of the most commonly used panels in the industry, some of the ones that we use? And then if I'm a customer, what are the different considerations I need to factor in when selecting a panel to go with?
Sure, that's a great question. So in panels, for the most part, industry-wide, everyone's using what's called a Tier 1 panel. And then as solar installers, if you're getting it financed, we also have to follow what's called an AVL, approved vendor list of panels. And so we're always trying to look at who's on those, what panels are they going to be doing. Your base panels are on the better category, always. And so those panels, they're really, really close to the same. There's not a huge difference between them. The specs on them are really close to the same. All of them are spec'd out to take hail, golf ball sized at 75 miles an hour.
That's the number one question I've been getting is about hail. Are they rated for hail? And so can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so they're rated for 75 mile an hour golf ball size hail. And that's industry standard, all panels. Yeah. That's a requirement for them to be at that rating. You have companies like Mission Solar that are made here in San Antonio, Texas. They have a funny video where they actually like shoot a tank round through the panel and says, well, okay, it won't take this, but it will take golf ball size hail. And so, you know, that's industry standard. It's a really cool video, but that applies for all panels. So that's the biggest thing on the, you know, better panels is that they're all going to be very stable. They all have a 20 to 25 year production warranty. And then you have a few different panels that say, hey, we're going to add this kind of warranty to the panel or this. But overall, they're all pretty much very similar in that. And then when you go to some of the best panels, there's a little bit of variation. They're typically more efficient. Mm-hmm. And the premium panels, that's when you have the different technologies that are actually coming into it. And so it's boosting performance. Sometimes they'll look a little bit different. They'll be a little bit larger. Different things like that.
How about wind? A lot of customers that give me a call, you know, they've been in the areas where recently we've had some tornado activity, we've had some high winds. We've worked with customers down in the Corpus Christi area where they have high winds. So how do solar panels fare against high winds, especially the ones that are mounted on your roof?
Sure. So I'll just bring out some of the product that we use for that. This is a flashing that we actually put on the roof. And so this flashing attaches to your roof, and we put this, we actually put a bolt through the rafter, and it's sealed so that there's not roof leakage and everything like that. And then we also have this to cover it. And then you have rail that sits on top of that. So it looks a little bit like this. And so then we're attaching the panels to the top there. Well, because we're adding the additional, we're adding things directly to the rafters. We're
bolting it in.
We're bolting it in.
There's more surface that the solar panels are actually covering because we have the flashing in there, right? It's kind of...
Yeah, so in the really high wind areas, what we end up doing is we move the flashing closer together, and that helps with high wind. We look at what the wind ratings are required for each area that we install. And what we've seen is places like the DFW area that tornadoes have come through. We've done what's called a remove and reinstall. So we remove the panels so a roofer can go and fix the roof, and then we reinstall them. Most of the time what we see is that the solar side looks fine, and the roof is actually in really good shape, and it's the other portions of the roof that...
So the solar system reinforced the roof during high winds, and there's less damage, if any at all, on this roof side that had the solar.
Right, because your rafters... typically come like this, and so now we're adding another layer that's going like this, and so it's actually strengthening your roof up a little bit. We also look at, hey, how much is that going to add to the roof, pound-wise, to make sure that it's within the regulation that we can be in. In situations where we can't get into a rafter because it's a pre-manufactured home or different things like that, we also do have specialized flashing that we can put on that still grips to the roof and allows an extra layer of security on all of that as well.
All right, Tim. Well, hey, thanks again. I really appreciate it. I think that about wraps it up. Yep. But before you go, please make sure to email us, give us a call, check out our website. If you have any other questions that this interview kind of brought up for you, or something we didn't address in this that you want to hear about, drop them in the comment sections below, or just send me an email. These videos are very informational, but it's really about you, the customer. So let us know what you like and what you want to learn, and we'll get back to you. Thank you so much, and God bless.